The only way NARA could ever get this back, would be please, could we have it back?
And they
please,
asked for that.
because they have no.
They did ask for it.
No,
and they said, "Can you give the documents back?"
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
which
back.
they've never done before.
Right.
And
but why not just hand them over then?
Because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to NARA yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
Yeah, but
I've
according to
been
the
very, very
indictment,
busy.
you then tell this aide to move to other locations after telling your lawyers to say you'd fully complied with the subpoena when you hadn't.
But before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things.
We know that Donald Trump loves corruption, getting called out for that corruption, not as much of a fan, especially when the person calling him out is a host at the Fox propaganda outlet. And that is exactly what we just saw in an interview that Donald Trump did with Bret Baier, in which he was confronted over the $400 million bribe. Yes. It's a bribe that he took from Qatar in the form of a new jumbo jet. And when Donald Trump was called out by Bret Baier, yeah, he snapped, lost. It started attacking him completely, melted down in what was a disaster interview. We're going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we get into that meltdown and disaster of an interview, I want to start with a different question. Donald Trump was asked about a story not getting nearly enough coverage, the white South African refugees he's bringing to America.
You're welcoming white South Afrikaners into the country as refugees when you've closed off that door to a lot of other refugees from other parts of the world. What message does that send to those who say it isn't? Why is that fair?
Well, I think if I see people in distress, I don't care what color, what they look like, what anything, their size, their height, their eyes, I don't care. But I think that from all evidence, the farmers in South Africa are being treated brutally. And it's been reported, and nobody wants to cover it. But they happen to be white, and if they were black, I'd do the exact same thing. And we treat people very well when we see there's a genocide going on. So if it's a genocide, that's terrible, and I happen to believe it could very well be. South Africa's out of control, and it's been out of control for a long time, and the media doesn't report it. And I'm not looking for reporting, because, believe me, it's easier for me not.
This is clearly just such a political stunt to own the libs, and with the most disgusting, disgraceful, and illegal stories of Donald Trump's deportation coming out, it just makes it all the much worse. Tim Miller on The Bulwark detailed a story about a girl in Georgia who was pulled over for supposedly not turning her right turn signal on, even though she did. A girl who has been here since she was 4 years old, and now for the crime of not actually breaking the law, she had her turn signal on. She's getting deported to a country she hasn't been since she was a child. Donald Trump is shipping people to El Salvador without due process, and he claims to love everyone, to want to help people. This is a stunt, really, just for Elon Musk, but it's so gross, especially in the face of some of the things Donald Trump's getting upset at lately, like James Comey's post, which he threw a little tantrum over.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant, and he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country has become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he wasn't calling for violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it, because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this: I think it's a terrible thing. And when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision.
Donald Trump posted a photo of Joe Biden in the back of a car hog tied on the highway multiple times from his Truth Social account. And now we're supposed to freak out over James Comey making a joke to like his 200 Instagram followers. What happened to free speech? What happened to legalized comedy? Are we done with all of those things when it hurts? Donald Trump's little fifi. Now we have to throw some huge tantrum. All we ever saw was post from Don Jr. about Paul Pelosi, about going after Joe Biden, going after his family. And now that James Comey makes a little suggestion, it's all, we have to lose our minds. The hypocrisy is staggering. It is gross. And poor little Donald was all so upset in his interview, especially when, like I said, Brett Baer asked him about that plane, and just look how quickly Donald Trump snapped.
But a lot of the coverage back home was about this donation of the Qatar Boeing jet. And I've heard you talk about it.
You know, until you bring this up now, I haven't heard about it for 3 days.
I know, but I mean, I'm just telling you
we
back
can talk
home.
about it again. You ready?
Briefly. I heard all the answers.
Well, no, but your audience has to hear the answers. Yeah.
They're giving it to the Defense Department.
To be very simple.
Yeah.
They're giving it to the United States Air Force / Defense Department of the United States. They're not giving it to me. I made a good deal. We need a plane for a couple of years before we get the other ones, because Boeing is very late. Boeing is sadly...
Did you talk to the CEO while you were...
I did. I said, let's get, in the meantime, I got them 160 planes to build. I said, how about the two that you're supposed to build for our country? Now, they are different. They're extremely complex, and I'm not going to go into it, but they're not like a normal plane. It's not like building a 747 normal.
Is Trump really trying to pretend like no one's talking about this story? Oh, I haven't heard about it for days. It may be. Because you live in your own little bubble in which you don't interact with actual truth. The fact that Donald Trump knows this is a scandal is even shocking to me. But Donald, even your own Republican stooges are calling you out for this, because it's not only egregious, it's not only corruption, it's not only gross, it's not only shameful, but it's a threat to national security. One he clearly doesn't care about, because this is all about Donald Trump. But the way that he just so quickly attacked Brett Baer, I don't want to answer that. So many people have asked, you should stop asking. It's like this is your propaganda outlet. You can't take one serious question. And when he continued to talk about the plane, he only made it worse. Just listen to this conversation he had when it was first offered.
And he suggested this. And I said, you know what? That's very nice. That's very nice. I appreciate it. What would be the price? He said, there is no price. I said, that's nice. Now, this plane's not for me. This goes to the United States Air Force for whoever is president. And at some point, it'll be like Ronald Reagan. It'll be decommissioned. It's 11 years old.
So it stays until it's decommissioned?
Yeah, it'll be decommissioned because they won't want it. Plus, they'll have the other two planes by that time, and there'll be brand new planes, etc. But I just want to say, it was a radical left story that a lot of people, including you...
And I asked the Prime Minister about it specifically. And he said, he didn't understand the reaction back home. And, he made that clear.
It was such a lovely gift, such a nice gift. Oh, I was so touched by the gift. And listen to what he said there at the end, right? He said, well, it's going to be for my presidential library, much like Reagan, right? He has the plane at his presidential library, and Trump said when it's decommissioned, but then he also said, well, we're still getting 2 new planes. So once those are there, then it will be decommissioned. What Donald Trump means by decommissioned is become his property. That is the worst part of all of this for me, is that Donald Trump has been settling lawsuits that he started through intimidation of media outlets who have now given tens of millions of dollars to his presidential library. And like all of the other symbols of what made our nation great, before Donald Trump decided to bring his wrecking ball, he's wiping his with it. It's gross. That's why I'm glad Senator Murphy is not letting up on this. He was grilling one of Donald Trump's nominees to State Department, letting him have it over this scandal.
I say this with seriousness and respect, but your department is out of control. You are spending like you don't have a budget. You're on the verge of running out of money for the fiscal year. You are illegally refusing to spend funds that have been authorized by this Congress and appropriated by this committee. You are ignoring the immigration laws of this nation, implementing a brand new immigration system that you have invented that has little relation to the statutes that you are required, that you are commanded to follow, as spelled out in your oath of office. You are routinely violating the rights of immigrants who may not be citizens, but whether you like it or not, they have constitutional and statutory rights when they reside in the United States. Your agency acts as if laws don't matter, as if the election gave you some mandate to violate the Constitution and the laws passed by this Congress. It did not give you that mandate. You act as if your disagreement with the law, or even the public's disagreement with the law, is relevant and gives you the ability to create your own law. It does not give you that ability. Let's start with your spending. You are on track to trigger the Anti-Deficiency Act. That means you are going to spend more money than you have been allocated by Congress. This is a rare occurrence, and it is wildly illegal. Your agency will be broke by July, over 2 months before the end of the fiscal year. You may not think that Congress has provided enough money to ICE, but the Constitution and the federal law does not allow you to spend more money than you have been given or to invent money. And this obsession with spending at the border, as the chairwoman mentioned, has left the country unprotected elsewhere. The security threats to the United States are higher, not lower, than when before Trump came to office. To fund the border, you have illegally gutted spending for cybersecurity. As we speak, Russian and Chinese hackers are having a field day attacking our nation. You've withdrawn funds for disaster prevention. Storms are going to kill more people in this country because of your illegal withholding of these funds. Your myopia about the border, fueled by President Trump's prejudice against people who speak a different language, has shattered many of this country's most important defenses. I acknowledge that you don't believe that people should be able to apply for asylum, but you don't get to choose that. The White House doesn't get to choose that. The law requires you to process people who are showing up at the border and who claim asylum. Why? Because our asylum law is a bipartisan commitment, an effort to correct for our nation's.
I will make this guarantee to you as long as Senator Murphy is still talking about it. You best believe I will. I'm not letting up on this plane. I'm also not letting up on the presidential library scandals because it was happening way before. Again, all of these lawsuits that Donald Trump has been settling, he's been sending that money. How they've been doing it. It's like, well, you could make a nice little donation to the presidential library to preserve Donald Trump's legacy. Oh, it's so good for the country. But do you know what that donation is? That donation, it's a tax write-off. These giant corporations are writing off their bribes to Donald Trump. It's a win-win for them both. The corruption doesn't just happen in the White House. It's also these spineless, business leaders who are happy to bend the knee to Donald Trump, knowing he's collapsing the economy because they're all so worried and scared. Well, hey, it's time to grow a spine. The guy's wrecking the economy. If you had any sense, you would stand up to him. God, I'm so sick of these people. We're going to keep calling them out on this show. Better believe that fire is going to be there every single day for me. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.